All right, buddy. So for those of the listeners out there who don't know who Dr. Kelly Flanagan is, give us a little bit of a little bit of your history, and let's talk about that from both the personal and the professional side. Because really,
Okay.
we're teeing up in general is why were we at a retreat together, and
Right.
right, and even how did we
Right.
meet?
Yep. Oh gosh. So how did we get to a couples retreat together? Um, well, okay. The short version is I had parents who fought, not like mean fighting, just fought. And I was a sensitive kid. And at some point in undergrad at the University of Illinois, someone said, "What do you want to study?" And I said, "Couples conflict," and I got into it that way. And went on to get a PhD at Penn State University, and my master's thesis and dissertation were on couples conflict. And I sort of over the years, I guess, in my effort to help couples figure out how they're going to deal with their conflict, kept running into roadblocks, and discovered that the roadblocks were within people, and that it couldn't just be about helping couples communicate. It needed to be about helping spouses and partners heal some of those inner struggles that they were going through. So eventually I wrote a book about all of that and everything that I'd learned along the way. It's called Lovable. And one of your great guys, I think, suggested me to you for a call at one point,
That's
and
right,
things
Daniel.
progressed.
Daniel
Yeah,
did.
Daniel. Yeah, exactly. And he'd been a colleague of my wife's at the college where she taught. And so, yeah, I came down to the Keys last October and
Yeah, man.
presented some of the ideas in Lovable, and it was a total blast. And it sort of went from there. And we wound up out in Colorado last week, just having really we tried to do it in like an hour in the Keys, or an hour and a half, 2 hours. And we had like 3 days to just sort of blow up
Yeah.
everything, all of those ideas. And it was a total blast.
So cool, man. Yeah, it's, first of all, I love the book. Lovable is a fantastic read.
Thanks, man.
Second of all, our guys had such a positive reaction to your session at the Front Row Dads Retreat that I just knew that I needed to help you get introduced to other groups that I knew. And so the crew at Go Abundance and now this Go Couples trip, they're always receptive to the great teachers, right? They want to find them, they want to include them, and I was so happy to see that you were the great teacher they selected. And
Yeah, and I'm grateful for you for those connections you've made. It's an incredible group of people. I when I connect with a group of people like that and share what I have to share and to teach, I get as much from it as you all do. So thank you.
yeah, what is that? There's a saying, right? One person teaches, two people learn.
That's exactly, you got it. That's it.
Oh, I
Yep.
love that, man. That's great. Tell us a little bit about your family at home.
Family at home. Well, as we mentioned, I have a wife named Kelly.
Yep.
She's a psychologist as well, and she was a professor for many years, taught child clinical psychology. And then 4 years ago, we sort of decided to flip our lives upside down, and she gave up her tenure, and I sort of left a practice that I'd been working for, started my own business, my own clinical psychology practice, and she went into practice helping out some underserved families in this new town that we moved to, and yeah, so that's what we do. We're both psychologists. 3 kids: Aiden 15, Quinn 11, and Caitlin who's 9. And they're mostly awesome and sometimes maddening. So
Yep.
they're real human. They're real human beings. It turns out. Darn it.
No doubt, man. That's great. What's one thing going great as a dad? What's one thing that you think you're just, like we're all failing in certain areas, but where are you knocking it out of the park?
Where am I knocking it out of the park as a dad? That I'll be honest with you, it's not where I tend to focus.
Mm.
I tend to be a problem solver and focus on where I could do it better. I I think, though my 15-year-old probably wouldn't agree, because it's hard to parent a 15-year-old who's this crazy, awesome, vibrant kid who has this totally own personality, much more like his mom than me. But I'm happy with the learning I'm doing in terms of raising a teenager. It's hard, it's rewarding, but I'm I'm learning how to love him and like him for who he is, and that's so rewarding.
Yeah. Very cool, man.
Yeah.
So, hey, let's take a quick transition here and celebrate why we're doing this. This is a first of its kind conversation today. And so for everybody out there listening, we've never done this. And what I mean by that is we're talking with Dr. Kelly because he wrote, this is now your second blog post for Front Row Dads. The first one is our most popular post ever, awesome. Which is great. And so, guys, this is really a gift that Dr. Kelly, being such a wonderful writer, a thoughtful, clear, great writer. You know, I just love the writing in Lovable. I love the writing of you. And this is really how it all blew up for you, by the way, right? You wrote a post for your blog that then went totally viral, landed you on the Today Show. And that was kind of that's the nucleus of this incredible story, at least your professional journey with being an artist, right? So, so anyway, what Kelly and I decided was that we were going to, for the next blog post, we were going to get together, talk about it, and he'll read it. So in just a moment, I'm going to ask Kelly to read the post, and then we're going to break it down. So I think that's pretty cool, man, that we're doing that. This is the first time ever that we've recorded this for the podcast. But I do want to say, for anybody listening, that even if you had to drop off now for whatever reason, you should absolutely go check out the book Lovable, and you should check out Dr. Kelly's work. And we're grateful that you are part of this brotherhood, Dr. Kelly, that we're so honored to have you as part of Front Row Dads. So this is really cool.
Thank you. It's one of the
I don't know what
lessons.
you need to say back to that, but just thanks. Like I just
the one and only.
Thank you.
No,
that was big setup there. Was thank you. So cool. And here's another question, by the way, before we get into it, because we actually tried to travel down this road on a recording that we did a moment ago that got blown up, right? Our internet crashed on us. Yeah. But I feel like this is an important question too, before we get into the blog post, is that, and if my memory serves, we haven't done this yet on this recording, but it's like, not too long ago, we were at a couples retreat together, right? Yeah. And so what I wanted to ask, we didn't do that on this recording yet, right?
Not anything specifically about it.
Okay, good. I told you where did we cut off and where did we resume? But
I told you how we got there, not what we did. Yeah.
Yeah. So here's the thing. So what I want to talk about for a brief moment is what happened at that couples trip. Yeah. And I want to ask you, what was that? What was your big takeaway about that event? And maybe it's because how it can relate to the audience that's listening now is, what do you think went well at that retreat? And this is a 5-day, set this up, this is a 5-day couples retreat hosted by GoBundance called Go Couples. Yeah. And this was about, how many couples did we have there? It was around a dozen or so, right? And so all these couples show up, and it's a really cool blend of, a little bit of adventure, some great food, some great conversation, and then some structured dialogue that you and Alana Pratt helped co-lead. So I'm just curious, man, for you, like what did you walk away with from that, that you found was really interesting?
That's interesting, because the way you just asked that question, I'm going to give a very different answer than the one that was cut off. And it's an answer I like better, actually.
It's good. So, it's good. Yeah.
Wonderful. Yeah, every mess can be redeemed. I thought, and I alluded to this a moment ago, that so much of what's going on in conflict between couples and just not even just in the hard stuff, but even in the good stuff, is you got two people who were once little kids, right? Who are trying to work out how to be loved and how to love and how to do it as well as they possibly can, and how to do so vulnerably and authentically without all of our protections and defenses. And so one of the things that I've come firmly to believe is that each one of us have still a little kid inside of us, who's trying to learn all that and do all that. And to watch a crowd of really motivated people willing to sort of go into their own emotions, and descend from their head into their heart, and to really reconnect with that little kid in them, his or her desires, his or her longings, fears, passions, and to see a group of people sort of do that as a whole, is one of the most rewarding things I can experience. I don't know that I get a chance to do that when I do like a day-long retreat or a day and a night. 3 days to get to watch a group of people do that. And, in a way, I joke about this, but like, it sort of affirms my worldview, which, we really do all have a little kid inside of us, and to see people get to that place and arrive there and to maybe not be aware of that and leave with more awareness of that is super, super rewarding.
Huge.
Yeah.
You shared this photograph.
Yeah.
It was actually a statue at Burning Man that's two adults facing away from each other, sitting down. They're back to back. And imagine this like hollowed out. It's sort of, it looks like almost like a wire basket type material, but it's in the shape of two humans, adults facing away from each other. But inside those baskets, representing inside these adults, are these two little people facing each other, these toddlers. And Tatiana and I got into a fight when we got back from the couples retreat. And she sent me that picture. And what's cool is that only with that photograph, I knew exactly what she meant, because we had that anchor, we had that conversation, we had that dialogue. So nothing else needed to be said. It was awesome. Just that photograph attached. And, interestingly enough, one of my close friends, I did some homework on the sculptor, and one of my close friends knows,
get out of here.
His name is Alexi, I think.
Yes, it is. That's right.
So they're friends, and I'm like, hate to make the ask, but
that one's worth it.
That's a conversation I'd love to have.
That's cool.
And so great stuff, Dr. Kelly, that you led, great stuff that you not only presented, but that you held a space and asked great questions, created an opportunity for us to come together. Let's get into why we're talking today, because I want to be respectful of the time, and I know you've got another client appointment coming up. So let's talk about this blog post. Let's get right into reading it first. And again, I want to thank you for contributing to the Front Row Dad blog, because your words are valuable, and the fact that you've gifted some of them to the Front Row Dads group is really incredible. And as I mentioned, your first blog post has been our most popular to date, which is really great. So let's get into the blog post. Let's have you read it, and then I want to ask you a couple questions around it. So if you've got it in front of you, man, just take it away. Let's get into it.
I don't totally remember what title we're going with, but I'll go with the one that I have listed up top. Do you know the official title yet?
Here's what's great. This is real-time conversation.
Yeah.
Didn't talk about it, but what we have as a holder on the blog post now, which is not live, but will be when we publish this episode, is the 2 things every parent must hold in balance.
That's the one that I sort of had at the top of my list. So there you go. Boom.
We're there.
Perfect. The 2 things every parent must hold in balance. All right. He dropped a dead rabbit in my living room. For most of his 6 years, our dog Cole has spent his time either at the front window, shaking with instinct, while birds and rabbits and squirrels frolic outside, or outdoors in hot pursuit of them. For 6 years, he never caught a single thing, at least to my knowledge. Then he did. I'd let him out to do his last business of the day, and when I'd opened the door to call for him, he'd come prancing past me into the house, tail wagging. There was something odd sticking out of each side of his mouth. He got to the center of the living room, turned around, opened his jaws, and dropped the bloody animal onto the floor. I wasn't quite as happy as he was. In fact, I yelled. I can't remember what I yelled, but I suppose to a dog it doesn't matter. He got the message. His head dropped, and he slunk to his crate, crawled in, and looked up at me with the saddest, most forlorn eyes I've ever seen, animal or human. And that's the truth, man. This dog looked pathetic. Poor guy. I didn't care. I got busy removing the rabbit and cleaning up the blood. It wasn't until later that it dawned on me. I had shamed Cole. In other words, Cole was made to hunt, and when he walked through that door after 6 long years of hard work, he was proudly delivering his prize to me. He was sharing his bounty with his pack. He was self-actualizing. And I told him in no uncertain terms that what he is was not acceptable, not lovable, if you will. This is the essence of shame, the message that what you are is not good enough. Apparently, even a dog can feel shame. And if a dog can feel shame, how much more so are children? My eldest son, Aiden, is a performer at heart. It's the way he was made. In contrast, I'm an achiever at heart. It's the way I was made. He gets decent grades, but he doesn't care very much about them. In contrast, for 2 decades, grades were my whole world. So when he walks in the door from school and drops a story on my living room carpet about reading Shakespeare aloud in class so theatrically that the substitute sent him to the principal's office, I want to scream at him. Instead, I take a deep breath and I say, okay, but how did you do on your English test? Great, he says, I got a B-. It feels like his B- is bleeding all over my carpet. It's so tempting to holler, to shame him for who he is, to tell him that performing on stage is way less important than performing on a test, to send the message in 1,000 little ways that if he is not more like me, then he is just not good enough. Now Aiden's reenacting the scene that got him into trouble, and I try to make space for him to be who he is. This is the love, grace, and acceptance we all want to offer our children. We want them to know they are wonderfully made. And yet this is only half the truth and challenge of parenting. You see, Cole can't be allowed to drop dead rabbits on my living room floor. Sure, he was made to do so, but bloody animals in our house is not a viable long-term plan for our family. I don't want to shame Cole for who he is, but I do need to set boundaries on what he does. In this case, that boundary is the front door. If I get a second chance to respond to one of Cole's hunting expeditions, I'm going to meet him at the front door, and in the kind of voice that communicates to every dog that he has loved and appreciated, I'm going to thank him for hunting for our family. But I'm also going to tell him he needs to leave the meal on the front steps. So as Aiden regales me with his Shakespearean performance, I delight in the way he is made, and I let myself enjoy who he is. Then I tell him the next time he gets a detention, he will lose his phone for a week. The way he was created, totally lovable. Some of the things he does with that creation, not so much. This is the balance we must be seeking as parents. True acceptance of who our children were made to be, paired with healthy boundaries around some of the things they choose to do. In other words, everyone is lovable, but the dead rabbits and detentions need to be dropped at the door. And that's it.
Dude, I love it, man. It's so
Thanks.
great. It's so
Thank
great. And it touches on such an important subject that we brought up at the couples retreat. And you can tie quite a few things together here. One of them is shame, right? This theme of shame, and also knowing who we really are. And actually one of the struggles that Tatiana and I face in our marriage is that we are, we're aligned in many ways. In fact, that was a question, right? Like, in what ways are you and your couple aligned, or your partner aligned? And you remember her response to that was like, I'm so amazed at all the ways that we're aligned.
Yes, I do remember that.
But then we also came to the conclusion, of course, that we're so radically different in the way that we approach some of those things that we align on. While we might align on health, our approach to living a healthy lifestyle may be very different, right? And our personalities are quite different. Totally. So this is really interesting, man. It's such a fascinating subject. When you read this after having wrote this now some time ago, because we've had this for a little while, what comes up for you, man? I'm curious. Like, as you read your own article, what feelings emerge, or what does anything? You have more clarity, or right? What's your reaction?
Totally. Well, as I was reading it, I was thinking, when you ask me for what I'm killing it at as a parent right now, it's essentially this is trying to really delight in who Aiden is while learning how to set boundaries around what he does. Right. And I wrote this several months ago now. And I think a lot of people sometimes think that when an author writes something, it's because they've figured it out. And usually if an author is writing about something, it's because they're needing to figure it out. And they're still very much working on it. So I sort of see this as, this came out of me probably out of a sense of awareness of Kelly. You gotta work on this with Aiden. You gotta work on delighting in who he is, but learning how to set boundaries around a teenager who's wanting to try out all sorts of different horrible ways of being who they are, and helping them learn which ones work and which ones don't in the world. You know, I mean, that's the challenge. So that's when I read it now, I'm like, oh yeah, I guess this has been on my mind for a while. And in hindsight, I think I'm giving it good attention.
Yeah. Hey, bravo to you, man. I think it's wonderful. Thanks, man. You know, the shame conversation, I feel like there's certainly lots of very easy ways that you can take a tangent from it. And that shame can be a very specific, clear, definable word, which has very specific examples. But I can't help but think about something that happened yesterday in my home that I'm asking myself, can this relate? And I'll give you an example. So yesterday we're sitting at the kitchen table and Tiger's doing math work, and we feel that he needs to maybe to keep up in school, needs to put a little attention to this over the summer, right? To support him. Yep. And he really doesn't like this. Right. And I got the feeling yesterday that he wasn't just struggling with the math problems that we were working on together. It was almost like he was acting a little bit Like he was, and so it wasn't that he was struggling with math that was getting me frustrated. It was his attitude towards the situation that was
The
really,
drama.
it was really driving me crazy. I mean, the drama was, it
Uh-huh.
was level 11, right? And it
Yes.
was,
Yep.
the trembling, and here's as a dad, I'm sitting there going, how much of this is real? How much of this is real pain? How much of this is, and how much of this is an act? And
Yep.
how much does Tiger need me to like literally call him out? Right.
Mm-hmm.
And say, hey, I get being stumped on something. And I get the feelings of like, I'm not good enough. I'm not smart enough. I have felt those many times in my life. I also know when I was hamming it up and being dramatic for attention.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah.
And so then here's what's crazy. Then I start raising my voice. I'm like, dude, like, like, come on, man. Like I'm starting to raise my voice. And I realized that one of my wounds, my childhood wounds, I remember sitting at my kitchen table about at Tiger's age, and my dad is sitting there. My dad's a math major, by the way. He has a master's in math, right? And he's also a military captain with a short fuse. But I remember sitting at the table, and I remember my dad like pointing at the table with his finger really hard and being like, just add the numbers, right? Like whatever it was. And I made an agreement right then and there at whatever age, but it was close to Tiger's age, that I'm an idiot. I suck at math. And boy, that belief lived with me for years. And I
Wow.
even remember that kind of being the moment when I'm like, I must be a total idiot here.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe I was doing the same thing. Like maybe I was being dramatic, and I don't remember that part. And maybe what my dad was
Right.
frustrated with was not like that I was playing games with him. And I don't remember that. I eliminated that part of the story. And all I remember is the yelling part.
Yes.
I had this moment with Tiger where I'm like, holy shit, I just repeated the very thing that I was like one of my biggest childhood wounds. And and so then in that moment, the next question became, how do I recoup? How do I come back from this? So what I did today was I took him to the gym. I sat in the cafe, and I was like, buddy, I'm here for you. Like, I thought I'm going to show up better this time in this moment. I'm going to actually have a talk with him about teaching him. I don't care if you know math as much as I want you to be a great learner, buddy. Right. Like that type of thing. And I'm going to explain all this stuff, but dude, did I do that okay? Is there a better way to apologize or come back from the moments where we do shame somebody and then need to recover?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. There's all sorts of important pieces in what you're saying. Number one, like I'd say personally, that's when I resisted the whole inner child thing for a long time, like even as a psychologist. And it wasn't until I saw myself starting to wound my kids in the ways that I'd been wounded that I was like, oh man, if I can empathize with how wounding that was for me, then I'm much less likely to do it to them. And that's exactly what you were able to do in that moment. You were able to own how painful that was for you, some of the messages it drilled into you, and you were able to do something different, which is huge. I think for us parents, oftentimes the different thing is apologizing, is not being perfect. If you're, as a parent, and I think we talked about this at the retreat a little bit too, but as a parent, if you're perfect, that actually sends all the wrong messages to your kid. Now they feel like they got to be perfect. My mom and dad didn't make any mistakes. Now I got to not make any mistakes. So to make mistakes and then apologize is actually it's a gift that you're giving to your kids. Obviously, we don't need to go out of our way to make mistakes. We make plenty of those naturally, but then to apologize, to come back and say, I did it wrong. You're showing them that it's okay to be imperfect, that it's okay to be humble and own your mistakes. You're showing them how to ask for forgiveness. You're giving them an opportunity to practice apologize or to practice forgiveness. So you're doing all sorts of good things there. I wouldn't change anything about what you did. To me, that sounds like you doing the best you possibly can to create a different experience for your kid.
Yeah.
I think that what's so interesting as I'm listening to you is like, 40 years ago, 50 years ago, there was almost no parent who would do what you just did, which is sort of reflect on their own performance as a parent, on their own history and story and wounds, and then try to figure out how to make amends. It used to be not too long ago, generation or two tops, that parenting was all about setting boundaries, right? And all about expectations and discipline. And I think one of the things that our generation wrestles with as parents is that we've we sort of have swung to the opposite extreme, where we are very focused on empathizing with our kids, understanding their pain, understanding it from a place of our own wounds and hurt. And so sometimes when we swing to that opposite extreme, then we go, okay, so I'm empathizing and I'm understanding, and we lose the boundaries piece altogether.
Yep.
Right. And so to be able to empathize with him and understand that you don't want to shame him, but he's got to get his math homework done too. And so to be able to come back and own that and apologize about it. And then one of the questions that I'll often ask in terms of dealing with the boundaries and the discipline and behavior stuff is just, how's it working out for you to act like this in the middle of your math homework? Is it getting it done faster for you? Let's experiment with some ways of attitudes to bring to it that will actually get it done faster. You're not going to get him to love math. You're not going to get him to maybe even excel at it, but how can you get it done faster in a way that's as good a job as you can do? Let's play with that a little bit. Right. Yeah. And that might be an approach that doesn't add as much shame, but you're sort of aligning with his goals, which is get my math done as well as I can so mom and dad are happy, and then get on and do other things. But it's that balance of being able to empathize so that you can come back and try to set boundaries in a healthier way. I think it's really important.
And the last thing I'll add to this is that it reminds me of something that I think Mike McCarthy said at the retreat, which was about the shame that we bring to scenarios with our kids, and unresolved shame in our own life, or when we haven't dealt with pain, when we still have an inner a child that's wounded. Interestingly, I don't remember who said it I'll just say it in the way that I want to say it, but sometimes it's like, in what ways is Tiger not doing math? How is it affecting me and my view of the world of like, hey, then it's a fear thing, right? Like my anger, you always go, well, what's behind the anger? And a lot of it's fear. Hey, if you don't do this math, if we don't get this done, I'm going to be a failure as a parent, or I'm not going to get the rest of my stuff done today. If you goof off, I'm going to be unproductive the rest of my day. So I need to really be careful before I start dishing out, the intensity, and ask, am I really doing this to teach him something about life? Am I really doing this as a place to help him become the best version of himself? Or am I projecting my own fears, onto this situation where I'm kind of saying it's for him, but really this is about like, I want him to be productive so I can go get my own shit done.
Like you just articulated something that I wish every parent could hear and know. One of the ways that I frame it is that as parents, we worry from our wounds, right? So if you find yourself worried about, Tiger's math homework, it shouldn't be any surprise that you have some wounds literally around math homework, right? And so when you're engaging him, it's as much about managing your own pain and wounds and fears and anxieties as it is about sort of getting him to any particular place. And so when a lot of what we're doing as parents is an effort to manage our own anxieties, we're probably not doing the best job we can. Right. So I heard a podcaster once, someone said, I want to read your book on parenting. And he said, oh, I couldn't write a whole book. I mean, it's simple. It's just about managing your own anxieties. And so you're nailing it, that all that stuff's bubbling up within you while you're trying to get him to do his homework. And he's getting in the way of getting through this quickly. And so, that's it. We worry from our wounds. So if you're having a hard time getting reconnected with that inner child and the wounds, just focus on what you worry about.
Yeah. It's good stuff, man. Well, I heard he just got home, interestingly.
All right.
What I'm going to do is when we're done, I'm going to sit him down. I'm just going to reinforce the fact that I'm so proud of him because he had a great day today. It really worked out well. And he did he did the math. He felt like a champion. I was like, dude, look at you, so it was a good recovery day today. So I was
talking this weekend with sort of a leader in our town who used to be chief of police, and he used the phrase an after action.
After action reports.
After action reports. And I feel like you did that with Tiger today and it paid off.
Yeah, that's cool, man. Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. That's actually a great plug. We have Ryan Mickler, one of my buddies who runs Order of Man. In his book, Sovereignty, he talks about after action reports. Now, he's ex-military, and that's a term they use in the military law enforcement. It's really good. Just sit down and debrief, right? How did it go? We do it in our businesses. We should do it with our families too. So good stuff. Hey, Dr. Kelly, this is great, man. I know you've got a client call coming up, so I want to be respectful of the time.
Awesome.
Guys, please go get the book Lovable. Read that. Get 2 copies, because I promise you when you read one, you're going to want to gift another to somebody else, and you're not going to want to let go of your copy. Something I do often on this show, and I want to say thanks to Dr. Kelly for being here again, and I want to do something to support Dr. Kelly. So here's what I'm asking. If you do, there's going to be 2 assignments, right, that you have to do, and then I'm going to reward you. One assignment is get his book, read it, write a review on his book, right, an honest review, and then screenshot that, send it to me, to john@frontrowdads.com, and I will send you something fun in the mail to say thank you for that. So if you can, and I'm going to do that for the first 2 people that are US based that do this. So buy his book, write a review, screenshot that review, send it to me, and I will send you something that you'll be grateful for in the mail. I really want to get Kelly's message out there. This book is a game changer for so many. And I'm not the only one that feels that way. People have commented about it to me regularly, that in our community, how much that's impacted their world. So the book is called Lovable. You can find it on Amazon. And Dr. Kelly, what's your website?
drkellyflanagan.com, drkellyflanagan.com.
Awesome. And we'll link to that in the notes with this one. All the goods you'll find at frontrowdads.com. And guys, if you're listening and you want to hang out with people like Dr. Kelly, then we'll be opening up our next enrollment for Front Row Dads in November. So that's it, guys. Dr. Kelly, thanks so much for being here, man. Looking forward to more of these conversations.
Yeah, me too.